This week on this channel, we're speaking about inventions, getting your own invention produced and manufactured in China. And in the last video, we spoke about kind of the whole process of what are your expectations. We touched a little bit on how to launch them, how to, what to expect, what to make sure, what are the costs of your invention, and a little bit of the process. That was a whole overview, right? So make sure you subscribe to this channel and go back there, because in the next videos, we're going to be talking a little bit more about the invention. We're going to be talking about how to launch your invention and market your invention. And I'm going to reveal my basically secret strategy that I'm personally going to use for my next invention. And let's go and dive into today's video. Today it's all about the process that you have to go through when you get your own invention up. So how do you go about sourcing the product in China? Do you reach out to multiple suppliers? Do you get samples? When do you get samples? How do you pay them? How do you go about custom tools and custom molds and all of that kind of stuff? Start that off. I want to kind of clarify what is an invention. Okay, an invention doesn't have to be the next iPhone, the next Tesla rocket, the next kind of thing like that. It doesn't have to be any of these things. Your own invention can be something that is just a change on the product, right? And I'm not talking about, kind of the private label products where you change the color or where you change whatever it is. It can be any kind of thing. It's all about kind of disrupting the market. And I love invention, and I love to help people source them. We have a sourcing agency here in Shenzhen, China. This is where I sit right now, actually. And we help people doing their own inventions in China. So if you're interested in that, there's a link to my email below in the description. Just reach out to me. And if you have questions about the process, well, just drop me a comment anytime and I'll clarify that for you. What is an invention? What can that be, right? Basically, it's every time you realize a product sucks and you want to change it, that can be an invention. For example, if I go run, I'm a runner, and I run and I have a drinking bottle here. I hate this bottle because if I'm drinking with it, the lid always stucks and the water doesn't come out. So I have to squeeze it. And then, for running, it's not a very nice bottle. I bought it for like $5. So I would say it doesn't matter, but it really annoys me. So an invention could be a change in lid and then marketing that right, that this really works better. It has been done before, but it doesn't really matter, right? So your invention is just solving a problem. Every time you come up with a problem where you think, oh, that sucks, that's an invention. For example, I have a colander, and if I make spaghetti and I pour it in my colander, some of the noodles slips through. If I put it back in the pot, they get stuck and all of that. So I don't like it. And this every time I'm annoyed by it, and every time I'm like, oh, this sucks. Then there's like, oh, I could possibly change that. Or it could be a change in design and just a disruption in the market on something that's already existing. So for example, vodka has been around for centuries. But then there's a guy and he comes up with, and he said, well, why don't we put the vodka in a bottle with a skull shape, right? And all of a sudden it becomes a great thing. Or it can just become about marketing it, right? So that's just kind of what I mean when I speak of an invention. It can just be something that doesn't exist yet, or something that you change up and you want to get it produced in China, because usually that's the only way to do it profitable, so that you still have a margin left, but you can lose all your hair in the process. You can get crazy mad. I would say 9 out of 10 people, after a year of trying and not getting it, give up, which is great for you, because that's not going to happen to you, because you are watching this video. So one of the first things to take away is that I believe you should never do that yourself. You should always hire someone to do that with you or for you in China. That's why we do it. It's incredibly difficult when you're not in China, because you have to go back multiple times to get your samples, get multiple rounds of samples. It can be 10 rounds, 20 rounds. It's a good idea to visit your manufacturer. You have to get custom molds or custom tools produced, right? So all of these things are crucial to the success of your project. So let's break down the whole process and go over every step that you have to take to get your invention done in China. The very first step is preparation. And this is where most people struggle, because that's what most people get wrong. When we get those done, in the very first call, we say, okay, what is the product? What's it going to be? How should we change it? What's important on the product? And oftentimes the only thing that we get is a pencil drawing on a piece of paper, right? Whether that's a bag, whether that's glassware, whether that's a plastic product, whether that's a metal product, whether that's a tool, whether that's furniture. I kind of drew it up here, so here's a drawing on paper. That's not going to work. You have to have a proper plan. If you have a custom shape of a glassware product or a plastic product, you have to have a 3D mock-up. So you have to hire a guy beforehand to properly design your product, to have the proper specifications of the product, to give you the design of the product, to make sure that on paper you have the exact connections laid out of different materials. What kind of glue has to be used? Should things be stitched together? And if you don't know these things, it's impossible to go to your manufacturer and have them figure it out. That doesn't work. They're very, very, very good at duplicating the same process over and over again. So once your invention is done, they can streamline your process, get your costs down and do 1,000 units of it, no problem, right? But to do something new, that's a big problem. So you have to have the exact plan. That's your first step. Have an exact, detailed plan. And I don't mean a pencil drawing on piece of paper. I mean proper plans, proper drawings, properly done by someone who understands the material. If it's electronics, it should be you have to have a product designer that can help you create a 3D mock-up for the product if you have a different shape, or lay out the function. If it's electronic, how is everything connected and what should the functions be, and how to actually produce it, because the factory, they're really good at producing it, but they're not very good at inventing it. Second step, and that's something that you shouldn't do yourself, and that you should have someone in China that guides you through that and does that with you, but it's the same process. The next step is to reach out to manufacturers and get something that is similar. Look for manufacturers that are producing something right now that is similar. And first go about it the same way that you would go about ordering or sourcing private label products. So what I mean by that is you go out and you get different quotations. You contact 40, 50 suppliers in China. You get different quotations for your product that are similar, that aren't changed. Simple things that they already do. You want to get quotes for that, and you want to get samples. You want to get 5 to 10 samples from multiple suppliers just to see the quality. You need to make sure that the quality is all right. I see people trying to do the invention before that go out and say, hey, give me a price for that. What would you do? What's the process, without the factory properly understanding how to make it? And then go and say, hey, make me a sample with it. And then they're failing with the first, second, third, 10th sample because they all don't look good. So before you start going into customizing your product, into creating your invention, you have to go through and get samples read from the supplier. Filter out those suppliers. After you have the samples, after you have the prices, that's when you go back through the ones, or to the 3, 4, 5, 6 suppliers that you have filtered out, that have okay prices and that have a good quality. That's the ones you want to speak to and say, hey, I have this drawing, I'm happy with your quality, but I want to do a little bit of a custom product. Can you do that for me? Here's the drawing, here are the plans, here's the mock-up, here are the exact specifications. Can you do that for me? Before you ask prices, just ask them, can you do that for me? Can you make me a sample? Can you do all of this? And then you want to get samples from multiple of those suppliers with your changes. So from 3 suppliers, 2 suppliers, 4 suppliers, something like that, with your invention changes, right? That can be without them producing any tools. You only want to go down that route with one supplier. So you just want to see how that process works with them, and kind of go with that one supplier then that you think that can do it in the future. The first sample is not going to look the way you want it. The second sample also, maybe you have to go through 10 rounds of samples, and it's going to be a huge and long process of constantly getting back and forth, and you're going to be like, oh, are you stupid? I mean it this way. Why do you produce it another way? Because in your head, it's very clear how to do it. But communicating that right with the manufacturer is a bit of a challenge. And having them doing it the way that you want it is a bit of a problem. So you have to go through multiple rounds of samples. If you have to produce tools, you have to make sure that those tools are all right. So you also have to source those tools, perhaps. This can all be quite a daunting process and take some time. So you have to go through 10 rounds, 15 rounds. It can take forever to do that. So if you have someone in China who can look at your samples, that saves you a lot of time already. That's pretty much the process. Then when you have the first sample that looks close to the way you want it, then you can start to finalize it, to do the last tweaks on the samples. Every time when you get a new sample, just change 1 or 2 things. Don't go and have like, okay, this is all right, but now we need to make 10 changes on it. Also be very, very open to changes, to getting the product in a different shape or a different form than you initially planned. Because sometimes just from the production, from like design and function, it might make sense from one thing on paper, but in reality, it's much easier to produce in another way, or the numbers come into play where you have one idea to do it, one material to use, and then you realize, oh, with those numbers, I can't make a profit, I can't make it work. So you have to change it in the process, so be open to that as well. I would say in 90% of cases, the actual invention on paper looks different than the invention later in reality. So just be aware of that, be open to the changes, and take your time. It can take a year. You know, if you have someone in China, it can take a year. If you don't have someone in China, it can take 2 years or a year and a half to get this done, which gives you plenty of time to create your marketing and your launch plan for your invention, because nothing is worse than spending all that money and all that time on creating your own product, then getting it out there and hearing crickets, and then say, oh shit, my invention doesn't sell, it's about the product, I failed, it doesn't make sense, just gonna stack all of those products in my basement, and I'm gonna sit next to it and cry a little bit because after all that time and all that work, my invention doesn't sell and it's just sitting here on my shelf and I can't get rid of it. That's the worst thing. Make sure that you subscribe to this channel, because in the next episode we're going to be talking about the launch plan for your invention or for your private label product that you did changes on, because you have to create a little bit of a buzz and a little bit of a hype and create an audience to launch that to. And we're going to be talking about all that in the next episode. Just the last step, when you place your order for your invention, you oftentimes have the mold cost or the tool cost. Make sure that you can break those down over the order. So there's always an option to say, hey, we have the mold cost, it's $5,000 for the mold. Now I'm ordering 1,000 units, so just let's just break that down onto the units over the next 2 or 3 orders. That's really it for me. Let me know what you thought about that video. Let me know what are your questions in the comments, and if you're interested in us handling your sourcing process for your invention or for your product idea, just send me an email and I'm gonna call you, we talk on the phone, and we speak about how to do that. Also, if you want to create the launch plan, we do consulting in one-on-one sessions where we create that with multiple clients, kind of prepare the launch plan for the invention, lay the foundation over the next year, over all of the steps that they have to go through to create the audience, to create a hype, to create buzz, kind of warm up the audience, and to create the product together with the audience. In the next video, we're going to be talking about exactly that. Stay tuned to this channel, subscribe, give me a like, let me know what you thought about it, and let me know what questions you have in the comments anytime, and I'll make a video about that and answer them for you. I'll catch you tomorrow.